I have been a friend and colleague of Shanta's for decades now, and she has written a wonderful book along with Elizabeth, and she has created a fabulous and at the present time, I think probably unique program for frail older people. And it, I think it turned out so much better than anyone could have anticipated. We're just so glad to have her really changing the model of how we cope with frailty and disability in old age. So I'm going to turn it back to Katie because she's facilitating, and then I'm sure she will soon turn it to Shanta. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jeannette. And so what I'd like to do now is go ahead and turn it over to Sandy. Sandy, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself and then pass it off to the next person.
I think I'll jump in. Is that okay, Sandy? So, okay, I'll jump in. So one of the things you'll learn about many of us here, I think today, and I'm learning about you too, is that we all have, we may have multiple names. So my name is Elizabeth, and I work with Sandy and Ruth, and I'll introduce them. But first, I want to say, Jeannette, thank you for your kind words. There's nothing like that. Like someone who knows somebody and has had some experience with them over the years. It means so much. So thank you for that. Thanks too for Katie for setting this up with us, and really for Karen and Carolyn, even briefly. You were ready there to help us, and everyone at Bainbridge Island Senior Center. I think I can speak for all three of us, and I don't do that very often. When I say that we are, all three of us are just deeply impressed with Bainbridge Island Senior Center and the programming that's offered, and all of you who participate and make that programming what it is. So we've done a little homework, and it's just really amazing to see what you have there on Bainbridge Island. So kudos to you. So now I'm just going to get started, and I'll introduce Sandy and Ruth, and then they'll take it from there. So to start, Sandy Sabersky has, for all of her life, been focused on aging and spiritual growth. And for 20 years, she was a physical therapist. And back in 1997, she was able to sort of weave all of those interests, aging and spiritual growth and physical therapy, all that she had learned over those years, weave all those things together. And that was when she co-founded an organization called Elderwise. And that was part of what Jeannette was talking about, was the Elderwise organization. So I know that Sandy is always grateful for opportunities for learning and for growth and expansion. And I think that this kind of event falls into one of those kinds of categories for learning and growth and expansion. And so again, we just thank you for being there, because you are clearly all learners and clearly all growing. So this is just a wonderful combination of people. Sandy, also, I have to say, and I think you'll see this, she exudes Elderwise and the Elderwise way. So it will soon become very apparent. Then turning to Ruth Neuwald Falcon is an Emmy, thank you for waving, Ruth, is an Emmy award-winning editor and writer and producer and web content creator and blogger. She has lots of small business and nonprofit leadership and management experience. And she joined Sandy, this was several years ago, initially as editor of the book that has been mentioned, The Elderwise Way, A Different Approach to Life with Dementia. And in the work that followed for the two of them, it was clear that she was serving more as a co-author than an editor. And as she helps Sandy translate all of her vast Elderwise experience into book form, which is not an easy thing to do. So Sandy and Ruth are co-authors on this book. Also about Ruth, at the beginning of the pandemic, just so you know, as a way of building virtual community, she started the Corona Support blog. And it's just amazing blog. People write in about their daily experiences, sometimes with big thoughts, sometimes with more daily routine kinds of thoughts, but all important to really support each other during this period of time. And I think Katie will at some point put the link to not just Elderwise, but also to that blog in the chat box. I would say too that Ruth would say that I know she enjoys immensely collaborating with authors and filmmakers, and because she's done a lot of that in her professional life. For me personally, I also think she just loves to collaborate with anyone, as does Sandy. And so I have joined Elderwise more recently than the two of them. And we work together on educational outreach for Elderwise, but it is a joy for me to work with them. And so now, before I turn it over to Sandy, I think Sandy's going to start. We do have a question for as many of you as possible. We won't be able to take too much time, but we'd just like to know, was there anything in particular that brought you here today to this talk? And I think it would be okay for you to unmute yourself and just, if you can, be brief, so we'd get to hear from you.
So I'm here for actually a number of reasons. One, I want to be ahead of the game if dementia occurs in my family. So that's one reason. Two, I am involved at the senior center, and I see people getting older, and it would be good to know, and again, ahead of the game, if something, needs to be mentioned. Also, I was involved with, there's again, part of getting old isn't so great, but this part is awful and I hate it. But there is, I've forgotten the name. There's a theater group in Ballard that does Dementia.
A Taproot.
Thank you, Taproots. Okay, so are you guys involved?
Yeah, we were there in the foundation of Dementia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because for a little while I was so I'm also eager to see what their connection with you guys is.
Okay. We're hoping to leave lots of time for questions and comments afterwards. And this time frame, this talk is not inclusive of everything. I have a lot of topics I like to talk about: conscious aging, aware aging, all kind of techniques that you can use to, help the day go well for caregivers and so forth. But the idea today is to give you a little bit of a sense of what Elderwise is, how it came to be, a little bit of our history, and then the key concepts. What are the key concepts with which we work? And those concepts alone will give you some way to be with people, with anybody, and in particular with people who maybe have, more and more frail and with dementia. So why don't we go ahead, and we have a little slideshow for you. Okay, so Elderwise started in our home on Capitol Hill in 1996. And at that time I was involved with the conscious aging movement. And the idea was to create a cultural enrichment program where frail elders could learn and grow and expand. And little by little, the program shifted towards working primarily with people with dementia. Okay, so this was our living room, and we talk a lot about the table. A lot happens around the table. And in this slide, we're working with clay and doing some artistic work. So the Elderwise Day program is a 4-hour program, and it has been, we've been going consistently from 1996 until the pandemic, which we're not doing it right now. but it's a 4-hour program. The first hour is kind of a social relationship, kind of community feel to it. And then we do artistic work. We're clay. We do our watercolor program. We're kind of known for that. And we eat lunch together. We have discussion. And the idea is, that there's something for all parts of who we are. The discussion group is to support the intellect. And yes, we do use the words, intellect and dementia in the same sentence, which is different from some people. Since the pandemic, we do 2 online classes. So if you know of anybody who wants to, we have a class that's called Mini-Wise. It's once a week for an hour, where we have kind of conversation and exercise, and it's a small group. So you can have really intimate conversation. It's a chance for people to share. And then we have an Art-Wise, where we do we send out an art kit and do artistic work. So we can keep on going then. Yeah, we're known for our watercolor program, and I think that's enough to say about that. So we've just been in different places throughout time. This was our most recent place at North Haven. Yeah. And this is one of our Zoom sessions. I'm showing off the book there. Mm-hmm. So the idea of the book was to write down an approach. What is it about Elderwise? What is the Elderwise approach? So that other people could do it and replicate it either on a personal level or for caregivers or in different programs. So that was the idea, was to have the caregiver approach. And yep, there's the book. And there's Ruth and I. So the first thing I want to talk about is wholeness. So with the idea of wholeness, we wanted to answer the question, who are you if you have dementia? I think that for me was an interesting question. People sometimes say, well, who are you if you have dementia? You've lost your mind, then who can you be? And so I think Ruth has a reading here.
I do.
And I'd love to hear from Ruth.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, this is from the book. And I think we think it helps give a clear understanding of what is meant by wholeness and the Elderwise approach. We have a general societal understanding that if someone has had an amputation of a body part, the personhood, the who are you of that individual, their essence remains intact. But when a disease state affects the brain, such as in Parkinson's or schizophrenia, we may not be as clear in our answers. Even more so with dementia. As brain function, the ability to think and remember progressively declines. How then do we answer the question, is this person whole? The Elderwise answer is a resounding yes. When I speak with someone, I speak to the whole, the depth of who that person is. I'm not speaking to a broken leg or an amputation or dementia. I'm not saying that problems with the body or brain are not losses. A broken leg is a loss, an amputation is a loss, and dementia is an even bigger loss. But we are more than our bodies and more than our brains. The core or essence of who we are is whole, always. This invaluable concept of wholeness is central to the spirit-centered model of care, which is the Elderwise Way. We treat all persons with the respect and reverence that acknowledges who the individual is at the very depth of their being. And that person, no matter what their age or level of function, will understand that you see them, that you see who they really are. They will feel the depth of that respect and the dignity with which they are being perceived and addressed. The depth of who we are does not change whatever the conditions. It is not affected by illness or disease. This is our essence.
Mhm. Thank you, Ruth. Yeah, I remember Jeannette and Dick used to bring students from the University of Washington over to Elderwise, and I would explain this to them. You know, like, are you whole if you're a baby? You know, are you whole if you have some, you know, well, clearly a baby isn't, you know, able to think logically and do all those things. So what is it about a person that makes you whole? Are you whole if you have some disease of the brain? What is it that makes you whole? And so what we do is we go in the Elderwise, we go to the deepest part of who we are. And we just call that essence. And, you know, when I use the word spirituality, it doesn't have anything, you know, religion is not required for this. What the idea is that, you know, we think about, well, what is the most important to me? What is the deepest part of who I am? And so we're saying, you know, and the belief of Elderwise is that you have not lost the essence of who you are. You have not lost the I of who am I. You know, we all have to deal with what we are here with, what we're equipped with. We had a physician participant once in Elderwise. He had memory loss. And I remember him saying, I have no choice but to live my life. That's all we can do, is to live our lives the best that we can do, given any situation. I think we can maybe take the slides down, Elizabeth.
Okay.
I'd like to see the people.
Okay.
So that is kind of a foundation for our thought process. As a care partner, as a caregiver or friend, our challenge is to practice seeing the essence of our own essence and that of others, and not be distracted by outer things. You know, the condition of our clothing, you know, the condition of our bodies, you know, whether I had a shave or not. So it's this idea, we're born, we live, we die. But this sense of I goes with us all the time. We had a woman once at Elderwise, she was in her 90s, not just her early 90s, she was well into her 90s. And she said, I don't feel old. So this is more common than you might think. And the reason is because, yes, your body is old. We know that. The body ages, the body dies, the body is old, but her sense of I that is with her whole life hasn't changed. And when we talk about essence, that's what we're talking about, that sense of I. Okay. So the next key concept that I'd like to talk about is spirit-centered care. I don't think there's a reading here, Ruth, right? We're waiting for the next one.
Yeah, right.
So spirit-centered care has some tenets to it. So the first tenets are really built upon that idea of wholeness. So what is it about Elderwise? How is it that we are unique? And this answer is very important and yet very simple. It is a way of working with others in which you work from your deepest part. You work from your own truth and essence. And at the same time, you recognize and honor the deepest part, the essence of others. So it builds on what I just said about wholeness. So the first two tenets of spirit-centered care is you work from your own essence. And the second one, you recognize the essence of others. This can be kind of what we call it, a spiritual practice. Because for the person, maybe you would call it the caregiver, the care partner, the friend, for the person who's relating, you're working from your own deepest part. So you have one hand here, you're working from your own deepest part, and then the other hand, you know, where you're giving service or whatever it is you're doing, you're recognizing the deepest part and the essence of others. The outcome is that it's a kind of a practice for the person giving care because they're staying in touch with what's important to them. And the other side of it is the person on the receiving end of care feels very respected, they feel seen, they feel honored and recognized. There's two other tenets I'd like to share with you. One is, we call it the sense of equality. And the next one is called the us versus them. So these two also go hand in hand. So the sense of equality is, you know, if you talk about the standpoint of working from the essence, then we can say, well, I have essence, you have essence, we all have essence. There's no change. If there's a person, you know, the person can have memory loss, they have essence. The person can be a nurse or so forth, they have essence. So the idea is, you know, what is the difference? It provides kind of a sense of equality. There's no hierarchy, you know, that a title or a role gives you more essence. So, you know, it gives that sense of equality. Everybody is in the same pot. We're all learning and growing to the best of our abilities. So the second idea, the us versus them, is very similar. You know, we need to not get too attached to our role, because I can go from being a patient in a hospital, maybe I have a knee replacement, and then I go home, I'm discharged home, and I'm taking care of my partner with memory loss. You know, our roles can change. A doctor can have a heart attack. You know, these things change from minute to minute. And yeah, I think that's about all I want to say for that. That the sense of essence, you know, gives us that feeling of equality. And then the last thing I'd like to talk to you about, the last tenet, is we call it deep listening. So listening is a huge part of the Elderwise Way, and it goes hand in hand with another practice, which we call slowing down time. I love this slowing down time. You know, the pace of the world can be overwhelming. I'm thinking about a time when I visited New York, and Ruth knows this, she's from New York. I'm pretty sure everybody runs all the time in New York. And this happened to be a cold day. It was snowing. It was sort of kind of snow on the ground, and I was taking a subway, and I didn't really know where I was, or, you know, trying to figure out what station I was supposed to go to next. And I come above ground, and everybody's running, and I just didn't know what to do. And it made me, I feel like that may be a feeling people have with dementia. Things go too fast. The world, it's too difficult to process. What seems like a normal speed to many, it goes too fast. So in Elderwise, one of the things we do is we call it the Elderwise time zone, and we just slow down time. You walk across a threshold if you're coming into a space, or if you're just with another person, you can consciously say, let's just slow down time here for a minute and slow it down to the present moment. I like working with people with dementia because I like working at a slower pace. I'm not in a fast orbit. It takes me time to process and think about things. So at Elderwise, we give people a lot of time and a lot of space so that they can share and open up. Listening is like a bomb. It's just like peace, the peace bomb. So this active listening and presence, it says, I see you, I respect you, I think you have something to contribute, and it's important that I hear it. And not everybody can get their thoughts out even with time, but maybe they'll just make sounds, or maybe they'll make movements. Those are equally valued. So that is the idea with listening. And I'd like to read you two stanzas of this poem. In the book, we have 5 poems by a poet named David Leake. He's a very intelligent, thoughtful, poised man, and I heard him read it was actually at a Dementia talent share. And I was just enamored with his poetry, and he began writing poetry after his diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So this was written after a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, the last 2 stanzas about listening. There is a softness in me that I greatly appreciate. It reflects my wish to be carefully held, warmly explored by a thoughtful and sympathetic friend, which I suppose is why I am attentive to others. I don't sing, I can't dance, but I listen and find beauty in the tender center of hope that everyone seems to carry and few care to explore. That's David Leake. So that is a kind of a summary of our spirit-centered care approach. And one more key concept that we'd like to share with you, and that's under the topic of spirituality and dementia. And I'm going to ask Ruth again to do a reading about this topic.
If we define spiritual as getting closer to the deepest part of who we are, our essence, or as the process of feeling more and more connected to all that is, an understanding of the unity of existence, then there is no reason for that essential awareness to be diminished, even with the diagnosis of dementia. This was one of our theories when we began Elderwise, and the years have validated that hypothesis. If spiritual is closer to one's essence, one's true self, then it readily follows that spirituality can and does coexist with dementia. The deeper essence shines through the heart, and regardless of the presence of dementia, a person is able to continue to develop the heart sense qualities of kindness, joy, and love. This has certainly been my experience sitting around the Elderwise table with people affected by dementia. There are those who would argue that point with me. I have heard people say about a person in the later stages of dementia, there's no one left inside, there's nobody home. But in my opinion, while there's life in the body, that essence is never gone.
Okay, so with this chapter, we attempted to answer the question, can you grow if you have dementia? Can you grow spiritually? Can you grow and learn if you have dementia? I'm not going to talk about everything because, of course, I think, I'm not downplaying the use of the mind. It's very nice to have a mind and to use that to will ourselves to do, certain things. So, it's not like, oh, this would be something I would like to do. But again, we have to live the life that we're given. And so a couple of thoughts here. Before we started Elderwise, I had a hypothesis. And the hypothesis was that people can learn and grow. People with memory loss, people with dementia, all people can learn and grow. How? You see, I was a physical therapist. So physical therapists, we always have to have goals. You can, have you increase your range of motion, or you can walk farther, or you can, do something you couldn't do before. So that was my thinking. So what kind of goals can we have? And what we came up with was that people could become more loving, more open, more joyful, and maybe more willing to try new things. You see, I think a lot, I think about death, right? We're all preparing for death because it's a good thing to do. My idea is that I don't know what death will be like, but I'm hoping that when I face death, I'll be open to it. That I won't be like I was in New York, kind of closed and tightened. And what we do when the world goes too fast or doesn't meet our needs. So what we want to do is provide an environment where people can open up and they can expand and be like this. And those are kind of the goals that we had. But did I know if it was possible? No, I didn't know that. It was kind of a dream. I think this is possible. But after 25 years of experience now, I've seen it and I know it to be true. Now, how can that be? How can it be that a person can develop these qualities as your brain is decreasing? And the reason is because they're deeper. They're deeper and they're more fundamental than that. I don't know if that's enough of an explanation for you, but in my mind, they're deeper. A person with dementia can become more loving and more joyful and more in the moment. Doesn't mean everyone, it means there's the possibility for that. There's another reason, which is just as a person with, maybe a person who's blind develops, we know they develop a finer sense of touch, more finely attuned. And in the same way, a person who has less cognitive ability can develop a more expanded sense of heart. And so that is something else that we have seen, this kind of more expanded sense of heart. Again, not everyone, but it's a possibility. And again, if you're with somebody, if you connect on the heart level, you'll see what happens. If you're there, rather than trying to, what did you have for breakfast isn't going to work. But hey, what's happening now? That's where we're going to meet, and you may find that more expansion, that more love, and that more openness, and it's good for all of us. And I think that is all. That's our kind of the key concepts in a nutshell. So at this point, I would love to hear any kind of comments, questions. Anything that you might like to discuss.
Hi,
Sandy.
Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Sandy. I'm Bonnie. This is just so comforting and so wholesome. It's such a wonderful approach. It's such a wonderful, I just reached inside of me, just feels so like, I love the aspect of the essence of us isn't just the brain or the body, and that there's more. And to touch on that is so, I don't know, it makes me emotional. It's so, it's like you got it. I guess you got it. Also, I have one question: is this book something we could buy?
Yes, it is. I mean, I think Jeannette is trying to get it into your local library in Bainbridge Island, and also the bookstore, the local bookstore. And we gave our first presentation at the Third Place Books in Seattle, and they carry it or will order it for you. It can be ordered. Any bookstore can order it through Ingram Distribution. And, you know, also Amazon. You can get it on Amazon, both in book form and in, what do you call it?
An ebook,
Yeah.
an ebook. And Barnes and Noble also carries it.
Thank you, Ruth. Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie, for your question and for being open to receive this, you know, this idea.
I also want to jump in and just say that one person who lives up in Mount Vernon just recently told me that she went to her local library to ask them to bring it in, and they have now ordered it. So now people in Mount Vernon are going to be able to do it. So if anybody wants to ask your local library, that would be great. We'd love to get it into libraries so that, you know, more people, they don't have to buy it. More people can have access to it. Not that we don't want you to buy it. We do want you to buy it, but just a way to get it out more into the community.
Then I just want to point out to folks now that to read, just put a link in for Eagle Harbor Books. So for anybody who would like to purchase it through the Eagle Harbor Bookstore, the link is included now in the tab here.
I was just thinking, it's a perfect Christmas present because it's not that big. Yeah. And, you know, one of the wonderful things about, I think Eagle Harbor Books does this as well, but, you know, Amazon will send a book to anybody you want, which makes it really easy. But also Eagle Harbor, I think that's great to request books on the URL. And I'm filling out you do a book request for our library as well. And the more people that do the same things, that both order it from Eagle Harbor and request it from the library, you know, the more copies they'll buy. And so I think there's no such thing as too many people asking for this book. So I encourage you all to use all the different platforms because the holidays are coming and we know we won't be seeing a lot of people in person. Send something that I think is really relevant, whether or not there is, for example, someone with dementia in your family. There will be. So I think also the fact that it is respectful and kind of universal. These are principles that are perfectly wonderful with people who have no dementia whatsoever. The idea of listening and honoring the spirit, those are universal. So I just want to make that plug for the book because I do think that it's very well written and helps you understand yourself better even.
Were there opportunities to expand the program? It sounds like something so many people could benefit. Was it just your location or were there other places?
Yeah, I think, you know, we have our program, we used to call it the beating heart of Elderwise. And we have had, you know, students come through, staff come through and go on out into, you know, since it's been over 20 years now, many young people have come through and gone on to other careers. So I think our way of doing it is not going to be to open many more and more centers, but rather to educate through the philosophy. We're trying to develop educational, that's why with Elizabeth and Ruth, we're working together to develop educational materials so we can train others. You know, it feels a little esoteric, but it is something you can teach actually, you know, and that was what this whole idea was, to get the approach, you know, the Elderwise approach, you know, and it can be something for family caregivers to use at home. You know, we can use it with our family members and also in retirement communities and so forth, and memory care communities. The staff can be trained.
It is not getting caught in the, I wish this person was what they used to be like, but being with them as they are now, because none of us are what we used to be like. I mean, we're all going through this process, and it takes some of the edge off, I think, for both participants in the relationship, that someone, because even if people are aware, as David Leake, the poet in the book, I mean, he's certainly aware that he's changing, but he is still loved and honored for who he is right now, which is all any of us can do and be. It is, I mean, as Jeannette said, it is a universal approach, and it's really a lovely one.
Honoring the wholeness of the person, that is a concept I just think is so incredibly powerful. I think you've talked so much about how we hear so often like this idea of the shell of a person, or they're gone, but to still honor them, to honor their wholeness. I absolutely love that concept. So thank you for sharing that with us. One question that I had, I know you had talked about having to do kind of change gears a bit with doing the virtual series. And I was wondering if you could just kind of talk about how that's going and what that looks like, any kind of successes or challenges that you're finding with that.
Yeah. We have 3 virtual programs going, actually. The one of them is a group of the people who used to come in person, and now they come with their care partners. And so we meet once a week since April. We've been meeting, and we've really gotten to know their partners. And it's become kind of, again, it's a moment caught in time where we just, because of the situation, because of the pandemic, we just worked with these people, and we know them, and we've been able to kind of, share quite, an intimacy with them. Then the 2 programs that are open to the public are pretty small. I mean, we limit it. We don't want more than 9 boxes because it seems like, because we want that intimacy. So we limit it to 9 boxes, but we haven't had to turn anyone away, put it that way. People aren't, jumping at the bit to come. So the programs are pretty small. They have 2 facilitators. And, the one is, it's a chance to talk about anything, like over a cup of coffee. They're kind of facilitator led, and they come, the people we work with, they usually come in partners. Some of them come alone, but most of them are with their care partner. And it's just a time to be themselves and to be together. And, if you know anyone, we'd love to have a few more people. Anybody who could use a little more connection. And then the other one is the art one that, we do. It's not the same as when you're in person. I really do miss being in person with people, but it's what we're doing now. We're looking forward to, Nancy, I wanted to address a little bit, you asked about Dementia. Many years ago, we got together with a group of people kind of wanting to involve the community more, and with sort of like-minded organizations that could bring enrichment. And so we were one of the founding organizations. There's been a lot of partnerships in Seattle. We partnered with the Fry Art Museum. We've partnered with Seattle Parks and Recreation. We're going to be part of the University of Washington Memory Hub that, will be open as soon as we're allowed to do in-person gatherings again. And we're talking about doing a virtual opening with that as well. So yeah, and it's, there's connections, there's people on the East Coast that are doing this. It's a new culture, that's coming, that is shifting. I mean, Jeannette has been working in this field for so many years, and what we can tell about the condition, it's improved a lot, right, Jeannette? And I mean, in the years since we've been working.
I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about not the idea of listening. I think that, that's clear. But if there are any particular techniques of listening example, my brother had a brain tumor, and
Mhm.
there were times when he simply could not communicate in ordinary language. He retreated to a kind of personal language that
Yeah.
I honestly believe I came to understand, and
Uh-huh.
so that
Yeah.
I could respond to him. But, are there particular ways in which you can relate to someone who's communicating in ways you don't quite get?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great question. And, one that when you work with the population of memory loss, you have a lot of opportunity to do that. It's hard to know where to start. But I think the first thing is, if you want to listen to someone, is to not talk. To sort of, what you're doing is you're creating a space. It's like, I'm going to hold this space for you, and you get to fill it any way you want to. Whether I'm just going to sit by your bedside and be here. I'm here for no other reason except for you. Or I'm going to be, I'm just available. I'm available to listen, and not worry about times that are quiet. And if there's, some sort of, maybe you call it gibberish, maybe it's just sound, maybe it's trying to communicate, maybe it's just kind of, different kind of words coming out. So you listen. Maybe I can go, maybe the words don't make sense, maybe the feeling makes sense, go a little bit underneath that. You said you came to understand maybe a little bit of what he was sharing. Even just doing your best to kind of make some sense out of it, understand it, or just say, I don't understand it, but I'm going to share in the feeling. I'm going to share in your joy right now because you're saying something and you're waving and you're looking at something. It's like, okay, good. Let's share and wave together. Or maybe you're sad or you're frustrated. Okay, let's share and be frustrated together. There's just a way of like, I see you. It's just saying, I see you and you matter and you're important. And whatever way something can, that's why we do artistic work. It's a different way, and even different kinds of artistic work. We had one person who, her painting was okay, not that interesting, but we gave her a ball of clay, and suddenly there were all kinds of figures coming out, and you just giving people an opportunity to let the inside come out in whichever way it can.